If you can recall, in thinking back, 4 whole days back to Monday, we kicked off that conference by reflecting on this week in July 2024 as the beginning of Octavia Butler's parable, the parable of the sower, later the parable of the talents, and setting up for that third book that never came. And we had talked about the first line of earthseed that comes out of Octavia Butler's parable of the sower. All that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. And we brought in some additional reflections too on contamination and collaboration through Anna Singh's study of Matsutake mushrooms, where she said, we are contaminated by our encounters. They change who we are as we make way for others. And I don't know about anybody else, but I feel thoroughly contaminated, thoroughly changed and wonderfully contaminated by our collaborations together this week, truly. And we still need reimagined schools and public education now more than ever. Urgent problems like climate change, for example, require immediate, widespread, and collective action. These issues require a humane education that ensures that all students are critical, empathetic agents in their communities and on the global stage. And we've seen this week so many great examples of this work in practice, and also in so many places and contexts across the United States and the world. And again, Adrienne Maree Brown, the author of Emergent Strategy, urges us to fight for the future, get in the game, get dirty, get experimental. How do we create and proliferate a compelling vision of economies and ecologies that center humans and the natural world over the accumulation of material? So how do we do this? We embody, we learn, we release the idea of failure, but first we imagine, and we are in an imagination battle. You see, if we embrace dystopia and doomerism, we lose hope as a platform for action in the present. In assuming that incremental change is hopeless against entropy, we either embrace the darkness or put our faith in panaceas or magic potions, grifters and charlatans, or superhero teams who are going to swoop in from the shadows and fix everything. We become locked in a stasis and fail to do anything at all. So in other words, the failure to reimagine education and our fundamental relationship to the future becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The future depends on educators in coalition with other movements to create an equitable society, to demand and make change here in the present. Imagining a better future isn't naivete, it's essential for a thriving world. And we must preserve, in the face of everything, a positive outlook toward organizing, surviving, and building anew, or risk becoming stagnant. As we've seen with the principles of emergent strategy, individual actions, think small is all, individual actions snowball and propagate through systems, and each act of service, each pushback, each classroom decision can fundamentally build that better future. And it's up to us to make that tomorrow a reality. If we can't articulate more viable futures and adapt, Adrienne Maree Brown cautions, then our human future is pretty hopeless. And I really do hope that we've been able to not only engage in that necessary imagination battle, perhaps even in our own heads, right, about what's possible in relation to our own comfort levels and our own locus of control. But we've seen so many practical and lived examples of taking the next step of putting vision into reality. So to help us build something collectively and collaboratively as a result of our learning this week, we'd like to turn you loose on one last Figma, now that we've gotten the hang of it, to share out and capture big takeaways, what excites you about the future of education as you leave the conference today. And hopefully at this point is where Chris is dropping the Figma link in
Yes.
here. Yeah, I
Now,
see
Nick,
Trevor's
really quick,
chat.
if you could make it an editable link before I share this, that way people
Oh,
don't have to
okay.
reload.
Yes, we can do that. All right, let me stop sharing and then I'll reshare so I can do all that. Okay. Share, editable link. Well, it's an open session, so anybody who joins should be able to edit it right away.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully that works. And then I'll reshare if it's on the other side. And certainly y'all can let me know.
And if you either don't want to use Figma or you're on your phone and it's too difficult to use Figma, feel free to drop these questions and concepts in the chat and we'll transfer them over.
Right on. And in fact, so Chris, I might share my screen, but do you want to just kind of explain the idea of what we want to build with this and kind of how we're going to use this information?
Sure. So as folks jump in here, I'm actually going to hit this button. If you want to follow me, it will prompt you on your device, and you can just kind of see what I see as we go through this. But yeah, as you're jumping on here, we're kind of going to do this in three separate rounds, with the goal being one, just to share out our takeaways and to build something together in a group reflection and really reflect on our learning, and talk about what that looks like for us in terms of this week. We'll then move into action steps. So what do we actually take away from this work? After we reflect together, what is the next step? What are we going to build? What are we going to do? What's the action that we're going to take? And then finally, there will be a spot for us to give some feedback on the conference and just help us do better. Um, I know it can be kind of annoying to fill out a lot of feedback forms, but it is really useful for us to ensure that we can do this as best we can. So I figure it'll make sense to start off with just this group reflection section. Don't worry just yet about the rest of it. So starting here with the group reflection, there's four questions going across. There's a question surrounding a concept that you want people to take away, whether they were here or not here. Um, Something that excites you about the future of education. That could be based around conversations we had here or just generally. A hope that you have for young people toward building a better future. And finally, one resource that you'd like to share or shout out. And again, that could be a resource shared here or one that you're familiar with. In order to fill this thing out, as a heads up, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a sticky note. You can just drag and drop that sticky note right onto the thing and start typing inside that sticky note. If you haven't used Figma before, there's a zoomer slider in the bottom right corner that you can pull, or you could use like control middle mouse or pinch if you're on a touch screen, and you can move around by using the hand tool in the bottom left, or hit H on your keyboard, and that will help you move around. I'll stop doing the highlight. And again, if you're just joining us, you can also fill out these questions in the chat and we'll transfer them over, um, and we'll hear your thoughts here. Let's put a timer on this, Nick. Let's do like, I don't know, 5 minutes for these four questions. And if we need more time, we can always
Yeah,
do
right
that.
on.
And if you're just joining us, I just put a Figma there in the chat. If you're on your phone, feel free to answer the questions that Nick is sharing. Nick, if you could zoom out a little bit on yours so they can see the questions. Probably just the first three are fine, unless you can fit all of them. But you can feel free to drop those in the chat and or join us in the Figma, plop in a sticky note. Actually, be quiet to give you all a chance to think.
Okay, everybody rescue your sticky notes from whatever somebody just did. We can't take you guys anywhere. Come on.
add one more minute to that, and I think we should be good. Many of you are already doing this, but of course, take some time, look through other people's responses. There's a few people adding cute, like little stamps. I've been adding cat stickers. Feel free to add as you see fit.
I appreciate the people who feel confident enough to add the stickers. That's great. All
All
right,
right.
cool.
Well, I'm just going to toss a couple of shout outs here just for recording purposes, but obviously many of you have been reading through what everyone's been saying here for these answers, but it really is quite beautiful to just read through everything from the idea of like loving yourself, iterating on these ideas that you're not alone. And I've noticed a huge concept that folks are really taking away is just that idea that kind of small is all, that those small steps that people are taking really do make a big difference. Building that community of folks that are going to roll that snowball, if you will, toward a better education system. Folks are sharing some really incredible messages about finding that right work, doing things differently, um, creating spaces of like humility and hope where folks are working together to make a change. I should note we'll probably collect these responses and put them all in one place. It's easier to read after we're through with this. We get some kind of like blog post or something that we can share out. And obviously, all of these resources, I know that's been a really common theme, but there are we'll have enough resources for years if we started now, just from what people shared in this session the last few days. So, yeah, I'm just really grateful for y'all adding all your thoughts in here, and hopefully it's something that you can revisit as you go throughout the school year, because it can be a fairly isolating place. And knowing that you have that community, I find to be very powerful. So let's actually kind of talk about the action step now. I'm going to shift down here. Again, I'll hit this button if it's useful for you, just to come down to where I'm at. Um, we're just going to talk about this next section briefly, which are what are the next steps? What are the action steps that we should consider? And there's just a few things to consider here. The first is, what are you looking for in a community? Are there particular outlets, events, resources, organization ideas? Full disclosure, this is really for our benefit as a nonprofit organization. How can we better serve you? What activities can we offer to assist you in that regard? I'm also going to just kind of read through the rest of them here really quick. What communities are you currently involved in that other folks should check out? We're not a monopoly on education organizations. There are plenty of cool organizations doing cool work. How can we get involved with them? And then there's a space here on just what resources are you looking for? Like, what are those communities, those spaces, those concepts that you're like, man, where is this thing at that we can pair with above? And then I'll talk about the HRP stuff after we go through these few questions here. But maybe just a few minutes, Nick, for this one, I think. Just the few questions that are available on this row.
I'll interrupt real briefly because I'm reading Susan's comment about Twitter, sigh, colleagues. Threads hasn't really taken off yet. If there's a place that is like close to that golden age of edu Twitter where we all met, right, for the first time, drop that in here too. Like, where is that space where we can encourage people to congregate and get together? I don't know. I don't know where it is.
Wait, wasn't somebody last year at this conference? I can't remember. We emailed about it, Nick and Chris and whoever that person was, who was going to build something that was like the new thing. And I can't remember who it was or what it was, but obviously it didn't happen.
It escapes me now. Yeah.
No, I think you're talking about probably Peter with his kind of like decentralized community thing, which I think
Yes.
is still working on building. Um, Kind of the in between space is really what he's discussing is a Discord in many ways. But we also know that not everyone wants to use a Discord, so it's kind of like how do we bridge that gap?
I know it's annoying to keep talking while people are. I think some people have transitioned to reading other people's comments, which is great. Uh, the nice part about Twitter in its heyday, right, was that it was kind of it was like, oh gosh, what historical analogy could I make? It was like the Roman Empire, right, was like unifying of all of these different groups, and then after it kind of fell apart, now we're like the Holy Roman Empire, where now just everyone is kind of in their little fiefdoms and things like that. That's kind of what it feels like now. We're all scattered all around, just kind of in our own little spheres. So anything that helps build bridges to kind of between these silos could be a really great idea. I think I was reading probably
R-
Jane's if Jane
Really quick,
Shore's in here. Yeah.
let's take a couple more minutes and have folks fill this thing out before we dive into it.
Okay. I get excited. Sorry. If the person who wrote in the middle space about Nest Labs could just put their name on that. That way we know who to reach out to. Because it says, I'm a member of Nest Labs. I would like to talk with you. Who are you, person?
Nick, that is me, just so you know. This is Jane. I'm having a hard time getting back to that.
No, you're good. I kind of thought I was wondering, but yeah, I saw
Yeah.
your name hover over it, like as a little claiming it. So I think that's good.
Yeah. I don't know why it's not going on automatically.
It's the wonder of Figma. It's both the coolest and the worst tool. Depends on the exact moment that we're using it. I'll start reading through this, and then feel free to keep adding your thoughts as we go through. I'm kind of seeing three major themes in this idea of what you're looking for in a community. I was trying to move them together. Um, the first is it seems like there's a pretty big want for collaboration surrounding like book clubs, getting together, just talking about stuff. That's something that we used to do that I'm certainly more than keen on bringing back. So we'll definitely be in touch about that. There's also a lot of interest and a lot of stars on just more practical meetups in terms of less like philosophy and context of pedagogy, but more like show and tell. Like, what are the actual things we're doing? How can I help you build that thing? Almost like creating a tuning protocol space for folks to talk about their practices, their projects, etc., which could also be a really cool way to come together and keep that community alive. And in between here, I did put some stuff here like School of Thought, what Jane's doing out there. I'm not sure if the What School could be folks are with us, but there's been a lot of folks just wanting to bridge the gaps between the different organizations that exist, which is really what we're trying to figure out here in the second section, which are like, how do we bring these different groups together, knowing that social media is just not what it used to be. Like there hasn't really been a space that's emerged as being a spot where all the cool progressive educators are, at least not publicly. So the more that we can bring these different groups together to have meetups or talk together, because again, our goal is not to homogenize the education ecosystem inside of our Discord. It's to connect different people together in different ways that makes the most sense to them. So we're seeing a bunch of cool orgs here. If you can think of any more, please add them on here, and we'll collect all of those. Reach out to people that we don't know, people that we do know. You see EduColor on here is doing amazing work. I think they actually kicked off their conference like today or like one of their sessions. Transcends really cool era, etc. Unrulers on here multiple times. And then finally, moving over to resources. I didn't get a chance to read these beforehand, but I saw something on here about the wiki or like directory of schools. Certainly that's something that we were just talking about on Discord this morning, like internally. So more on that a bit. Free service guy would be super sick. Um, Collaborations where we make things together, of course. All sorts of kind of things there. Hilberto, go ahead.
When it comes to like schools that are, is that like schools that are specifically like progressive education like oriented? It just reminded me of I have like a paper from like a PhD student that a professor sent to me that basically has a super list of schools across the US, which I can kind of look for and share.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
longer than
there's databases are weird because there are a bunch of organizations that have databases, but it's really hard to keep track of which ones are updated, which ones aren't updated. Like full disclosure, we had planned on doing that at one point, but it seemed difficult. But I'm totally down to like check out what's out there and see if those are meeting our needs, and if not, kind of open sourcing it and building it in collaboration with other folks. Briefly, for time purposes, and we will come back to this again, like blog post form slash share it out. I just want to really briefly kind of go through the stuff that we have just to make sure that kind of like everyone's on the same page on how you can stay in touch with Human Restoration Project. The first is really quite obvious, which is our Discord space exists year round. It's not just for the conference. Pretty much every channel that's on there, if it's outside of the conference track, has been in existence now for a few years. We highly encourage you to stay on that platform, to engage with us on like the various asynchronous chats, but also we plan on hosting more live events, everything from fun, silly stuff like D&D type stuff. There seems to be a lot of interest in our community from D&D, but also more like academic, book clubs. I really like that idea of like project tuning protocols or process protocols, and having more of those live meetups, which will be hosted either via Zoom or Discord, whatever we find that, our community prefers. Another relatively easy way to get involved with HRP is to contribute a post on what you're doing, whether that be a reflection, a cool project you worked on, like a experience you have with students that you think should be shared. We have a bunch of writings on our website. We're always looking for folks to write for us. We pay a tokenistic $100 if you contribute something to us, so it's something to just kind of get the word out. And of course, we'll share that across all of our social media and with a variety of people. A few other things. If you do want to meet up with us in person, we're fortunate that we are visiting a lot of locations in the next upcoming year. You can see the list of them here. But if you live in any of these locations, especially Iowa, Ohio, or Michigan, as that's where Cassie, Nick, and myself live, let us know because we're always down to come meet people, hang out, get a coffee, get a drink, whatever it might be. Because really this work is happening obviously on the ground. As much as we have the affordances of digital spaces, we love to just meet up and talk, which is a dangerous combination, FYI, especially if Nick and I are both there. We're going to be there for like 7 hours if you invite us. So please don't be afraid to kick us out. And just a few things like more on like the resource end. The first is if you want to support our work, we are a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3. Donations are tax deductible. The Midwestern part of me hates doing this, but it is worth noting that we are, a tax benefited organization. We have cool merch. We have ways that you can get involved through volunteering. You can find all of that on our website across this link. We also have a ton of free resources on AI use, on hosting student focus groups. All of the previous conference resources are listed. We have a primer, an ungrading handbook. We spend a lot of time ensuring that those resources are very teacher and student centered. So we encourage you to check those out and to see what's going on there. And then finally, it would behoove me not to mention the fact we do work in partnership with schools. Our work is entirely centered on the idea of we listen to students and teachers on what's going on and how they want to reimagine things, and then we help construct plans of getting there. So we host student focus groups and empathy interviews. Many folks probably on this call have engaged in that work with us. And then we work with schools to offer professional development on those specific needs, whether it be something that we specialize in or a partner organization that would be better suited to speak with you all, who's kind of directed to the resources that you need. There's a lot of development on this front that we're really excited about. Namely, we just worked with our transcription partner to exponentially grow how we do student empathy interviews. The new iteration of it is all student led. So students will actually go out and host conversations in their community with other peers. We plan in the fall to start this out with 10 districts in Ohio. We're looking at like 400 to 500 conversations to analyze in the first month of school to figure out what's going on, and give a lot of really meaningful data to schools, and then potentially move that into grant work, professional development, etc. So that's what we do outside of this conference. That's really where we're living in this space. With that said, Nick, for time reasons, does it make sense to collect all this information and move right into the feedback? What are you thinking?
I think that sounds great. Yeah, let's give people that time to go ahead and do it.
In that
So
case, yeah, it's a relatively quick feedback form. You can click on there. I'll also put it in the Zoom chat if that's easier. Um, we do oh, that's weird. Links to like a Figma link to the thing. Let me pull it back up. There you go. Here's an actual Google form link. That will take you to the Google form there. If you could just take a moment, we don't anticipate this taking super long, or just like keep it up on another tab. That just really helps us ensure that we can do things like keep the cost the way it should be, keep the speakers that people want to see, the format, etc.
Yeah, so feel free either complete that or just open it up in a tab, and when you get done here, you can take some time to do that. And yeah, probably if you saw any of the conference promotion too, like it's just a great way to get word out. If you've got great things to say and want more people to be able to attend next year, drop that in there too. Chris, do you want me to give them a minute, or I can go through sponsors and thank yous and kind of close things out here too?
I say just let's go through the end of it, and then as folks are wrapping up with the feedback, they can always continue on afterwards. But
Cool.
let's do the send off.
Awesome. Let's do it. Okay, so again, it's so bittersweet. Before we go, I got to thank our awesome sponsors for their involvement and their support. Of course, our transcription partner, Cortico, the Minor Collective, uh, of course, join the Thought Sanctuary again tonight, or for the first time if you weren't able to make it last night. And of course, the STEM Punks. Huge thanks to all three of these groups. We would not be able to do the work that we do without them. I have to thank our keynotes for their time and energy putting together both a recording for us to watch and consider, and then taking the time to spend an hour with us in a live Q&A. That's a lot to ask somebody in the middle of the summer, and we're always grateful for those people. So thank you, Dr. Mary Helen Immordino Yang, Dr. Sausen Jaber, Dr. Carla Shalby, and of course the Orchard View Innovative Learning Center today. I don't think we could have asked for a more perfect send-off as far as that goes. And then of course, our two track leaders, as I had mentioned in the chat earlier, both for developing and collaborating on some seriously meaningful and important work, and then being willing to get experimental with us, bring those things together in a way that we haven't done before. I found that incredibly impactful. So thank you so much, Abir. Thank you so much, Trevor, for doing that for us this week too. And then all the teams who put together school tours, panels, presentations, all of that cool stuff. The Community Lab School, of course, in Charlottesville, the Nova Lab. Gareth is in the chat here. That's awesome. The Clark Street Community School, and of course, the STEM Academy. And again, what I see here is not that you have to go to San Diego. You don't have to go to the coast or whatever to find, you don't have to go to some crazy far off land to find this. You can go to Charlottesville. You can go to Collegeville. You can go to Middleton and Lewis Center and find schools doing this amazing work. And of course, thanks to all of our event hosts, Cassandra Lee at MIT for leading us through Analogia on Monday. That was a new format for her. Patricia Russell and Carl Farrington Jr. with a fantastic update on the Mastery Transcript Consortium. And we'll see a lot more participation from HRP and MTC, hopefully in the future. Pam Moran and Ira Sokol, always an amazing time, encouraging us to make space to support human learners. So important. Vaughn Cleary's My Map at Assumption College in Kilmore, Australia, joining us at 4:30 in the morning his time. Huge shout out to Vaughn, and of course to Josh and Mel of What School Could Be, not only for their inspiring teacher panel, but for just being like rock stars in all of the live events over the course of this. They were just as much a facet and a feature as any of the HRP team. And of course, to all of you, our incredible participants, and the HRP team this week for your thoughtful engagement and presence over like a seriously packed 4 days of collective learning. And as we had mentioned in the Figma here, that if you recall, the Discord is still going to be there to help keep the conversation going. Dip in and out of it as you need to. Feel free to catch up, make connections, toss around ideas long after the conference is over. And we hope that you'll join us for all the future events as well. So huge shout out to you all. Yeah. Chris, any other parting words here before we give them time to fill out the form and call it good?
No, I mean, the only other thing I'll say is that there is one more session. So please don't forget that at 8 p.m. Eastern, we do have that thought sanctuary, reflective, just like chill space. So you don't need to prepare anything. It's literally just hanging out, talking with each other, engaging in reflection, making those connections, just kind of being a person in the space. Perhaps if you partake in beverages, you can take those with you. But otherwise, we sincerely appreciate you being here. Great meeting new people, seeing familiar faces, and we look forward to restoring humanity together alongside you.
Awesome. Take care, everybody. We'll see you tonight.